Hi, I'm Robert. This is the One Trading Paint channel. A little while ago I did a review on my Canon XA10 camera and I got a lot of comments wanting to know how I made my shadow box. So I'm here to tell you how to do it. I will say I am not a craft type person. I am a steel fabricator, so I do have a few tools at work that I can use that the general public probably can't. Doesn't really matter, you can substitute things as we go along and I'll show you that. First, what you're going to need is tape measure, pencil, paper, and let's get started. First, what you have to do is get some measurements. Now I'm using the XA10 to show you things. I'm videotaping with the HFM30, smaller Canon. It's HD, works really good. It's small and we take that on vacation. This is a little bit bigger on vacation, so I tend to use this more as my professional type stuff. Anyways, you need some measurements. Every size camera might be a little bit different. And I'll show you the camera that we're using right now. This is the shadow box I made for that. This was my first attempt. It works pretty good. A few minor flaws which I corrected on the last one. You can see the size difference quite a bit. That's why you need measurements, and one may fit some, won't fit them all, that's for sure. So measurements, what you need: tape measure, centimeters, inches, whatever. First thing you're going to do is you're going to measure how far out that screen is. You're going to write that measurement down. This one here, we're looking at about 4.5 inches. So you can write down 4.5 or a little bit less. The other thing that you're going to need to know, how deep the screen is. The screen on here is 2.25, so we're going to give it a little bit more room. We're going to make it actually 2.5. The other measurement you're going to need is how long you want to make it. I made mine roughly the same length as the camera itself, coming back down this way. So I made this about 5 inches, a little bit longer. What you can do then is, with your measurements that you've just taken, your 4.25, your 2.5, and your 5 inches. And here's how we all put it together. Grab a piece of paper. I've already gone to the trouble of marking out 4.25, 2.5, and the 4.25. What you have to remember is, if you just make a straight piece, bend it around, this thing will slide forwards and backwards. It's not going to stop. So you need some type of a lip on the front, preventing it from sliding off the camera. So I added about 1/2 inch. You can add 3/8, something in around that area. So with your piece of paper, you can draw out your lines, and then on the corners you're going to have to put a small miter mark. Now what I've done, and when I did this first in the shop, is with your piece of paper, you first make your bend. Your first bend, I have a brake press at work, and that's what I used. I'll tell you about the material in a minute. Right now we're just using paper. So with your first bend, basically that's what it looks like. And then from there, once you've cut out your little V marks like that, then it's a matter of, there again, bending it, and you can already see it's starting to take shape. Now the paper that I'm using right now, it's actually Photoshop paper. This would just about work. It's that cheap, it's that easy. But that's not what I used. Anyways, once you've got it like that, you can now start to see that front has a lip on it, and that lip is going to prevent the camera from sliding off. Now going this way, well, that's a whole other story. I'll tell you about that in a second. So that's the whole basic idea on how to build the basic box, just like that. Now my first one, along with these last ones, what I've used is actually flexible plastic. Got this at an industrial plastic store. I don't know if craft stores have them or not. Now the reason I used flexible or bendable plastic is because we have a big brake press at work, and I can make all my bends on the press or the brake. Now for the people that can't use one, don't have the access to one, what you would have to do is anytime you have a bend, you'd basically have to use single pieces, glue them together to make your shape. Let them dry and then proceed to the next step. Now the flexible or bendable plastic, when I got it, comes in 3 different colors. Comes in clear, comes in white, came in black. That's actually clear. I painted it black. Now the reason is, this is what the clear looks like. Once it's all done, you can peel it off. You can paint the inside. The outside will never scratch. You paint the outside too. If you want different colors, doesn't matter. What I found was, when I made the first one here, I had painted the whole thing black on the inside, not realizing that when you have the camera, turn this one on, you need runners on the inside. These runners, let's see if you can see that, little guys right in here, running back and forth. I made those one piece all the way back. And what happens is, with your camera, see if I can flip that screen around, you can see that it has buttons or little lights top and bottom. And because you've got lights top, bottom, right there and there, with the runner it hid those lines, couldn't see them. So what I wound up doing on the small one was actually chopping out some areas in here so I could actually see the light to see if it's recording, all that type of stuff. So the next time I built one, which is this one here, I put the runners in later and I left them clear. I painted the whole thing inside first, then used the clear. Now when I bought it, I had to buy it in a 4-foot length. That's why I went with clear. I could paint it later, but I didn't want to buy a 4-foot length of clear just for a couple little wee runners. Just save myself a couple bucks that way. If I'm doing a whole line, sure, I'll buy clear and, you know, black preferably. Now what I also found in the first one is, no matter what type of glue I used for these corners, crazy glue, contact cement, you name it, whatever, it tended to crack. And you want this guy to have somewhat of a flexible thing to it. And the reason for that is, when you slide it on the camera, you want it to have a nice pressure fit, kind of like that. Now the runners in here, where you put them determines how thick your screen is. This guy right through here, how thick that is. One side you're going to have the camera. I'll show you with this one here. Slides on, and it's the thickness, as you can see, for the runners. So that way, when it's like this, it's not going to fall off. That's why you need the runners. The other reason you need the runners is, if you actually put this on with no runners, it would just tilt down, it would fall off. It has nothing to lock it in place. That's what you need the runners for. Now the runners, excuse me, like I say, I used the clear, got the measurements from my side right there, and made them a little bit on the looser side. You can always taper them in just a little bit like I did, so it starts off loose, and as it gets in farther and further, it tightens up. Now if it's a little bit too loose, you use a 1/8 piece of foam, and that way it will cushion it. I used foam on the top of mine, so when the door is open, the foam rests on one side here, and it'll rest inside there. And that way it keeps this guy not looking nice as well. Now with this new one, you can see I've got a big silver shiny piece on the front, and that was to eliminate the cracking in here. On this camera, I wound up actually using an elastic band. You can see that it is open here compared to here. It's not exactly square. That happens when you put it into a brake. You have to overbend it to keep it straight, but it slowly opens up. There is an elastic band around there, and it tightened it up like that, and it worked great. The crack still came out, so to eliminate that, I had a piece of aluminum at work. Now you want to make these as light as possible. These hinges on here aren't that strong. It's not really meant to carry any weight, not any extra weight, that's for sure. So I had a piece of aluminum at work and put it over the top, and that got rid of the corners. Put something on there. You can make one piece of plastic around there as well, and that would stiffen it up. However, what I also would recommend is I ran the glue on the top, the side, and only halfway across the bottom, not all the way. And then instead of an elastic band, just in case, I'm using actually a piece of Velcro on the back of this guy, in case I ever had to tighten it up on the camera. If I ever had to tighten it up on there and squeeze it a little bit more, that's what the Velcro is for. I haven't had to do it yet. The measurements and everything seem to be bang on. The reason I only glued it halfway is on the bottom is so I could pull it in. The aluminum obviously isn't going to bend, the plastic will. So by just gluing halfway along the bottom, I can pull that other area and tighten it up, and that way when it's on, it wouldn't fall off like that either. Carrying the camera around, whatnot, you don't want this thing slowly to work itself off and fall off. And that's why you just want it snug, not too snug. The other thing I'll touch on is the very bottom of it. Like I say, this one here I've cut, and it's just about 5 inches long. And every camera is going to be a little bit different. What I wound up doing is on the underside is I've cut the bottom section of it away, right down through here. And the reason I did that is because of my on and off button on the camera. Found that when I had it on the camera, slide it on, when I tilted it up, it was hard to reach the on and off button. So take some off the bottom, get your hand in there, nice and easy to work with. Now the only thing you also want to look at is the length. If you make it too long going across the camera, which you can no longer tilt your screen up or down. So just be aware of that when you're making them. It's easier to make it too long and then start to trim it back, and same thing with the length back here. Make it as long as you want, you can always trim it back later. And I think that's about it. The glue that I used inside for the runners, any type of contact mint, crazy glue, it seems to work in that aspect, and it's holding pretty well. And I think that's about it. Works great. Any other questions, whatnot, email me, leave comments, and that's about it. So good luck, and thanks for watching.